What's up, guys? We're gonna go catch a couple bass real quick on these new Missile D-bombs, and then I'm gonna show you how I rig up for flipping. Well, that's not the size we need in a big fish tournament. Big bass bonanza. Jeez, man. I was sitting there thinking, man, if I were a big bass, I'd be in that little isolated king patch right there. First pitch in there, man, and thump. Like, there we go. Dang it. Why couldn't that be a 5-pounder, man? What's up, guys? I get asked by a lot of up-and-coming anglers how I rig the Missile D-bomb for flipping. So this is the new Missile D-bomb color that I designed called 310 to Yuma. You can see it's got that disco glitter in it, kind of bluish hue to it with some turquoise. The belly side is green pumpkin with the same glitter. Looks really good in the water. When the sunlight hits it in the water, it just turns like electricity glow blue. It's really, really cool. So I'm gonna show you the best way, I think, to rig these and give you some of the reasons why. So the first thing I'll tell you is the type of hook that I use. So the hook that I use is what's called a straight shank heavy wire flipping hook. And you can see this one's made by VMC, which is one of my favorites. I'm not sponsored by VMC, so I'm telling you just with straight honesty why I like the hook. For one, you can see on here it has 2 prongs to hold the bait instead of just one. I like that. Also, on the eyelet, if you can look real close there, you can see there's that same material is used to close the gap of the eye of the hook. So a lot of hooks, they just bend that eye around and where the metal touches, or sometimes there's a little gap. Well, that's sharp metal. So if you set the hook and your line gets in the wrong way, that sharp metal can actually cut your line. So VMC has taken that little material, whatever it is, Teflon or whatever, and buttoned that up a little bit so it's all smooth on the inside. You don't have to worry about that. One of the things that I do, not a lot of guys do it, one of the things that I do might surprise you. I actually take needle nose pliers and I bend it in just a little bit, not a ton, like literally just a tiny little bit, and that will help it to remain a little bit more weedless. Anytime you're flipping in heavy cover, you run the risk of snags. I just try to do a little bit extra to prevent it from snagging, and it does not impact my hook ratio. I don't lose fish because I bent it in just a little bit, but I do get snag less. So the first thing you want to do, you want to have a good rod, obviously. I use the iRod Bubtosh punching stick. It's 7'10", super lightweight, balanced, works great for me. I'm punching and flipping a lot of heavy cover. So I'll tell you right now, I use 65-pound braid, and that may shock some of you because I use it in all types of water, and that includes crystal clear water. When you're flipping in heavy cover or even moderate cover, those fish aren't looking at your line. They're not line shy. I get if you're in open water and you're throwing out on rock ledges and it's real clear water, you know, maybe you want to be line conscious about that kind of stuff, but for heavy cover, even in crystal clear water, I go with 65-pound braid, mainly because I don't want to snap off. I don't want to set the hook and snap off a fish at any point in time. So 65-pound braid. First thing you're going to want to do is get some, what they used to call bobber stops. I don't even know what they're called nowadays. A bunch of different companies make them, but they're these little rubber plastic type grommets, and they come on this little wire wheel like this. You stick your line through the little metal loop there. And if I could see. Okay, stick your line through the loop like that and pull some line out, and then just slide that thing off the metal right up onto your braided line, just like that. And then you just put this back in the box. You see that little rubber grommets on there. It's designed to slide on your line, but to do so tightly. And the purpose of that is you want your weight to be pegged down to your hook. And the reason why that is if that weight is free to slide when you're flipping, you can flip in there while the bait and the line are in the air, that weight will separate from it. It lands on a branch, the weight goes on one side and the hook goes on the other. And what happens is it never falls in the water. The weight's just hanging there and the hook's just hanging there, and the bait over one single branch, it never sinks. By pegging it, you keep the whole thing together and it falls and goes right into where you're trying to flip into. I like to use tungsten weight, and most of the time, in most applications, this includes lake or current moving water or tidal systems, most of the time I use 3/4 ounce. That may also surprise some of you. A lot of guys will flip lightweight, 3/8 ounce, sometimes half ounce. I will sometimes use half ounce. Most of the time I'm using 3/4 ounce, though. I want better control of the bait on an ongoing basis if I'm flipping a lot, and I also want it to just get in through the cover and fall down. If I'm flipping super heavy hyacinth, like at the California Delta, then obviously I'm going to go to 1.5 ounces, even up to 2 ounces to get it to crash down through that stuff. But for what I'm doing, 3/4 ounce works perfect. Then on the hook, I just tie a simple Palomar knot, which I like with braided line. I'm not a big fan of the Palomar with fluorocarbon. We'll do another video to talk about that. I typically don't flip much with fluorocarbon though. It just doesn't seem to hold up well to the high impact of hook setting. Let your line and cinch it down. So, just recapping what we've done, we bent the hook in just a little bit, not a lot. We use a straight shank, heavy wire, VMC flipping hook. There's many other brands. Like I said, I like the VMC because they close that eye with that same material. And then I cut the line. I usually leave about 1/4 inch of line on there. Now the next thing I do, not a lot of people do this, is I keep a lighter in the boat and I will pinch my good line and where just the little piece is sticking up, and I will light that just a little bit. And what it does is it creates a little button from the melted braided line. And in the event, and this happens very rarely, but in the event that your line just happened to slip on that knot with a hook set, that little button will catch and it won't pull your knot out. Not like your knot's going to pull out very often anyhow with a Palomar, but if it does slip, that button's going to catch it. All right, so then we just take and slide that weight down here, slide the bobber stopper all the way down there. We have a good, nice, tight finish there, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and rig the bait, so I'm going to move this out of the way first, and then I'm going to show you how to rig the bait. So with the 310 to Yuma Missile D-Bomb, I like the blue side up, so I will face the green pumpkin towards the base of the hook. I go in about 1/4 inch, and I slide it all the way up. You can remember it's got the 2 barbs on there, that one and that one. I'm going to go right over the top of both, right up there. And once I get the top, I'm going to roll it over, just like that. Now I'm going to push the bait forward just a little bit and pull the hook into the plastic, and then just push up on the bottom like that to give you a nice straight profile. I do not want that hook point pointing out, otherwise it's just going to snag. So you can see I run my hand across there, I'm not getting poked by the hook. And now I put that right down there and slide that thing. This is ready to go. This is what I flip with. This is what I highly recommend if you're flipping heavy cover. Clear water, dirty water, doesn't matter. Moving water, this is the right setup. Now, I will show you one thing, because I'm sure some of you are probably asking the question, do I ever use EWG hooks? And the answer is mostly no, and I'll tell you why. No matter what you do, if you're flipping, you're going to miss some fish. No matter what hook you use, you're going to miss some. It just happens. The problem with the EWG hook is when you rig your bait up on there, the reason why you might lose more fish on it is, so you can see I've rigged one there. What happens on the EWG hook is when you set the hook, that bait will slide up like that and ball up like that. So what ends up happening is that you don't get any hook penetration at all in the fish. So I've seen this happen where I've fished and my friends have fished with me, and they've hooked a big fish and they lost it and they got back to the boat and that's what it looked like. No hook point in past the thing. The other thing with an EWG, almost always when you catch a fish, just one fish, your bait's ruined. because it rips off that and it slides down or balls up, or the bait comes off completely. With this type of hook, literally, I don't want to punch it all the way through yet because I don't want to ruin this bait. What happens is it goes like that. You hook the fish, you bring it in, take the fish off, push the bait up, pop it right back in, you go right back to flipping again. I've literally used the same bait for like 5, 6, 7 fish. And sometimes if it gets all beat up, going one way, I'll literally turn the bait upside down and I can reuse it again. Whereas the EWG, almost every time I hook a fish, or even get a bad snag where you're having to shake it out and that thing starts falling down, and you go through all your baits much quicker. So I recommend not using the EWG. So I'm gonna take this EWG off. I have a lot of EWG hooks and I like them. I just don't like them for flipping, and that's why. A lot of guys say, oh, well, if you go with the straight shank hook, you gotta go with the Snell knot. And you're gonna find a lot of guys on the Bassmaster Elite Series that will swear up and down by the Snell knot. And the idea behind the Snell knot is how the line comes through the eye. When you set the hook, it makes the hook pop like that. So when you set the hook wants to go like that and pop. The theory is that it'll pop and go into the fish, you'll get better hook penetration. However, there are an equal number of pros on the Elite Series that say, yeah, when you set the hook, that hook goes like that and pops. But that popping can actually cause it not to go in the fish and then pull out of the fish's mouth. So, that being said, I hold the theory that the second half of the pros I've told you about, that oftentimes when that hook pops like that from the Snell knot, it actually prevents you from getting good hook penetration. And so I don't do it. I use just the Palomar knot. I meant to mention this a minute ago. When it comes to size of the hook, I use 2/0 or 3/0. I never go bigger on the D-bombs. And a lot of guys go with the 4/0 and the 5/0 on the D-bombs and beaver type baits. And the reason that I don't do that is I found that if you go with those bigger, I've got some here, those bigger style flipping hooks, they end up actually getting snagged more. So that's a pretty good difference between the 5/0 and the 3/0. And actually a lot of times I'll go with the 2/0. But what happens is just because of the size of the hook, the gap between the bottom of the hook and the top there is wider. And so instead of the bait being like this, it's like this. And when it's like that, you actually will get that hook point almost like this instead of like this. And any little pull, and it's gonna wanna poke right through and snag into the bushes. Down here on the lower Colorado River, we're fishing a lot of cane. And if you get snagged in that cane, you are not ripping it out. It is not. It's like hooking into a wood tree. It's not coming out. You can't just rip it like you can cattails or bulrush or something like that. So I would recommend that if you're going to flip with the Missile D-bomb, that you go with a 2/0 or 3/0 straight wire flipping hook. And the reason why I say 2/0 or 3/0 is that I have found that different manufacturers have different sizes. So this is a Mustad 2/0, and you can see it has a keeper there like that, but they don't have the little button to close the hook loop. And then I have some Eagle Claw that are also the same size. So I've got the Mustad 2/0, and then I have the Eagle Claw. This Eagle Claw is actually a 3/0, but if you put these hooks next to each other, the Mustad 2/0 is actually just a hair larger than the Eagle Claw 3/0. So that's why I say 2/0 or 3/0. Basically, my point is that you just want a little bit smaller hook than what a lot of guys would recommend. So that's going to keep you from getting snagged. It's not going to impact your hook set into fish. And that's it, guys. Hope to see you out in the water.